What's up guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Morgan. I'm a digital marketer turned UX designer who works in the financial services industry. I make videos talking about my career transition, how you can make your career transition to UX design, and the pain of existence. If that kind of content interests you, make sure to hit subscribe. So, I know another robe video, but I've had a lot going on in my personal life recently, and just like a structured how-to video, it's really just not in the cards for me right now. But my past two videos that have been really like impromptu and conversational done pretty well. So I mean, that tells me that people are looking for this type of content, and if I can help aspiring UX designers by sharing the realities of becoming a UX designer, I'm more than happy to make more videos like this. I know that there are requests for more structured videos, but I'm just not in the headspace right now, and I don't want to put out a shitty video for the sake of putting out a video. I want the information to be good, and I want to be able to communicate that information in a way that you'll retain and not have it be like me reading off a script. So stuff will be coming, but for right now, I'm going to talk to you about why you might be struggling to get a UX design job, and why in general is it so difficult for junior UX designers to get positions. So there is a huge demand for UX designers right now, especially due to the pandemic. A lot of companies are going digital with their products, and they're understanding how important it is for customer retention, to have a positive user experience, how important it is for, even if your core business isn't whatever digital product you have, having a positive user experience is essential to getting customers, because that's what customers care about nowadays. And customers are also becoming more self-aware, and they're understanding what a user experience is and why they deserve to have a good one. So like pretty much any big company that you could think of is looking for UX designers. And there's so many positions out there, and they're desperate for designers, but there's also a very high supply of designers, but they're all struggling to find jobs. So why is that? I'm going to go over just some like basic reasons why you might be struggling to get a UX design job. It's just some super common stuff that I see. So the reason that you're probably not getting hired is because you're not communicating the quality of your experience well. So for example, you might be focusing too much on UI design in your case studies. You might be fitting the problem to a solution that you've already determined, rather than actually being like, okay, a problem that I would like to solve is people having a more positive experience when they're traveling cross country. I don't know. And then so you start determining, okay, well, what are the pain points of people when they travel cross country? You can come up with a solution in the sense of you're not even coming up with a solution. You're coming up with a problem of, this is a problem. Maybe you had a bad experience traveling cross country. You couldn't find affordable gas stations. You couldn't find a path that connected all the attractions you wanted to go to, whatever. But then you start talking to people who want to travel cross country, maybe find out what they aren't going to, that type of stuff. But a lot of people will try and come up with something cool, they come up with an augmented reality app with no real audience, no real purpose. I did stuff for fun, for practice, but those weren't the case studies that I was showing in my portfolio presentation. So something that you should really do is look at your case studies and start thinking, okay, am I actually solving problems with this, or am I coming up with a solution and then fitting it to a problem and sort of skewing my data and everything? Because if the hiring manager has any experience in UX design, they will see that from a mile away that you're not actually solving a problem. And as I mentioned before, a lot of people also focus on UI or really fancy animations and stuff like that. And it's really easy to get distracted by that kind of stuff, and focus on it and think that people will be impressed by it. And maybe a recruiter who does not understand UX design, maybe that will impress them, but it's not going to get you very far in the interview process, because you're not doing a good job of communicating your UX design skills. You're only showing your UI design skills. So, you know, maybe have a mix of both. Obviously, it would be ideal if you had, you know, both in one project, but maybe to catch the recruiter's attention, you have a really beautiful UI of one project, and then to communicate with the hiring managers, you have a more complex, in-depth UX design project. So that's just something that I see a lot, especially the UI thing. People will just focus on like these really nice dribble shots and stuff, but then not actually explain like, okay, like what does this do? What does this app do? Why'd you pick an app? Why did you choose these people as your user personas? Why does it matter if they get coffee in the morning if you're designing a video game? Like, I have my points written down in bullet points. That's why I'm sort of going off on tangents with each one. So the second reason you might be struggling is that your case studies don't identify problems and how you deal with them. So UX design case studies aren't just about solving the user's problems, it's solving the problems that you come across while trying to design a positive experience for your users. So for example, a problem that I ran into with one of the projects that I did that actually helped me get my current position, my onboarding experience, which was essential to the app because it was a like tax document tracking app, the onboarding experience was essential. I needed the you know, all the financial and background information for the user in order to make the app work if it, you know, if it was a real product. So I spent just like the entire presentation talking about, like I gave a quick background and then I went right into this, like this was a problem for me. I couldn't find a way to make the onboarding interesting enough to keep the attention of new users, but also have the information that I need in order to make this theoretical app work. So I went into that, how I would do several rounds of user testing. I would take what people liked most about the different types of onboarding options I gave them, merge them together, test again. Users hated it even more than the first ones. And the people I was interviewing with really appreciated that because they could relate to it. They're UX designers, so they understand the struggle of putting your heart and soul in trying to fix a problem. You think you have that solution and the users hate it. So really emphasizing the challenges that you come across. You don't even need to solve them necessarily. Just show how you try to solve them. And then you're like, we realized that this was taking up too much time, so we scrapped it all together if we wanted to get this MVP out or whatever. Like real life is what is going to really help you get a position. Another problem you might be having is focusing too much on your portfolio and not enough on your case studies. I had this problem, a lot of designers do, where you're focusing so much on the design of your website and everything that you're not actually focusing on the quality of your case studies. I myself had a website. I came from the perspective of a hiring manager, and actually my current manager mentioned that he found my website super helpful, even though it wasn't the prettiest. I had a bunch of videos up there, basically answering common questions that I get from like phone screenings and stuff, or initial questions, like common questions that an interviewer would ask you, answering them so that way they could get to know me a little bit better, and he really appreciated that. And he still mentions it, and I've been working there for almost a year. So just keep it as simple as possible, please. Don't focus on, unless animation design or like interaction design is going to be your focus, like it's so easy to get caught up in all like the WordPress animations and having things fade in and all this stuff. What you should really do is focus on just having a clean portfolio with the simple information that recruiters and hiring managers are going to care about. Maybe do what I did, add videos or type out commonly asked questions in interviews, that way they can get to know you better. But just display your case studies. I used to spend a lot of time trying to design my case studies within my website. What I just wound up doing was putting them on Behance and then having images and linking them, and that saved me so much time, so I could actually focus on my case studies instead of how my case studies were presented. So the simpler the better. Really focus on your case studies. Sometimes it's even better not to have a website at all and just have a Behance profile or something like that where they can just look at the information, you know? So have a website if you can control yourself, if you know yourself and you're like, I will absolutely get lost in like all of the animations and the little details. Just do something like Behance. The last thing I'm going to talk about is that you might be keeping yourself in a bubble. You're not making yourself uncomfortable. I love this quote from Lori. I don't actually have the quote on me, so I'm completely paraphrasing, but Lori from Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank. And there was this woman who came on, I believe she had a lingerie line, and she had this crazy valuation of like $10 million or something when she had like $30,000 in sales. And they're like, okay, so you came to that valuation because someone told you that's what it was worth, like they had an investor or something. But then Lori says that she's out because she says she sees this all the time. People come from Silicon Valley and they raise all this money from investing, but then they become so in love with raising money that they don't actually work on the business or the product or anything and make a profit because they become so in love with the fact that people are like throwing money at this to become an investor. And that is sort of what will happen. You'll be so in love with coming up with these beautiful products and these perfect case studies where nothing ever goes wrong. And, you know, what investors want on Shark Tank is to see that you get your hands dirty. You solve problems, like you live in the real world, not this silicone bubble that makes you think that because people are willing to put millions of dollars into your product, that makes it a good product. So it's the same thing with like, oh yeah, you might put a lot of effort into like your beautiful designs and everything, but if you're not like getting your hands dirty and dealing with real problems, then you're not going to be taken as seriously. So people might tell you how like cool your product that you're making is, but if you're not actually thinking about it holistically and thinking about, okay, so I made this app now, how would I communicate this to my developers? Or would this be an MVP? Is this overzealous? How would I do this in stages? Things like that, like just thinking outside the bubble of this like little UX world where everything you do is perfect because you're working on a product that doesn't really exist. You can do absolutely anything you want. Try and make yourself uncomfortable. Think about the feasibility of things. Have a conversation with a developer. Like if you're in school or something, or like maybe you join like a Facebook group or something, connect with a developer, ask how feasible is this, and then work that into your project. Be like, so I communicated with a developer, they said that this functionality wouldn't be feasible in this amount of time, therefore this is how I solve that problem, this is what I replace that with, or this is what we decided to narrow our focus on, that kind of stuff. Like really try and, as if you're starting your own business, or do a design jam where you have to work with another person and you have a real deadline. You can't work in this comfortable bubble of no deadlines, no problems, and being able to put in any functionality you want, like an app that cleans your house and bakes cookies for you. It's not real. People might want it and you might be able to design mock-ups for it, but it's not real. So I really encourage you to break out of your bubble a little bit, get uncomfortable, get your hands dirty, accept failure, and deal with it, because that is what you're going to have to do as a UX designer, and that's what your hiring manager and everything is going to relate to more. I just want to leave you with a little bit of advice. I really encourage you to look at VA Experience's videos. He reviews a lot of junior UX designer portfolios, people who get hired, people who submit like thousands of applications and haven't heard back. He really dissects the portfolios and the case studies and everything and talks about what hiring managers actually look for. Of course, he is just one person. He is just one hiring manager with his own perspective. But it was super helpful for me when I noticed that my quality of interviews started picking up when I started really focusing on my story, my design perspective, and like I said, getting my hands dirty. I worked on something that I actually put money into to do research and everything. And like I said, I solved that onboarding problem for the most part, and actually like dealt with the problems. That's really when I started seeing my interviews pick up, because they would, instead of memorizing my, when they say, what's your design process? Oh, well, you know, first I define the problem, and then I research, and then I would actually mess up and be like, oh, I forget my design process, sorry. Like, it was so embarrassing. But once I started getting my hands dirty, I actually would be like, I have no design process. It depends. It changes every time. Sometimes I need to go back and redo research. Sometimes I need to completely scrap the designs that I did because they didn't work in testing at all, and I need to go back to defining the problem. Like, did I fix the problem with this? Like, it's never linear. And you'll realize that, and you'll be able to have your own stories as you start really getting out there. Maybe hit up a small business, or your friend has a business, or like I said, create your own product, you know, start doing stuff in the real world. But yeah, watching, I totally went off on a tangent, but watching VA experience was really helpful for me because it helped me define my story a little bit better. And the case studies, he's like, I don't care that you made 3 personas. Why? Why do these personas matter? Like, this doesn't connect to your project at all. So that really made me start thinking about, like, what's the reasoning behind my decisions? And that's something that you really need to define for yourself. So my next bit of advice was going to be about getting your hands dirty, and I don't think that I can emphasize that enough, but I wanted to compare it to, I don't know if anybody who watches my channel, if you watch The House of the Dragon, but Rhaenyra said, like, oh, like when she was choosing a knight to be appointed, she was going through the knights, and she's like, have any of these guys actually been in battle, or are they all tourney knights? So just something to think about, like, are you a tourney knight, or have you been someone who actually knows how to fight because you've been in a battle before? It's getting your hands dirty, or being in a bubble. I don't know about you, I wouldn't want to hire someone who is in a bubble because they haven't shown me how they deal with problems. Stop thinking, start doing. You really gotta get out of any analysis paralysis you have. Stop giving yourself busy work of fixing up your portfolio or working on this little animation in your app. You know, start like actually getting a good UX design project done where you're solving problems and that's all you're doing. I also suggest that you put yourself out there and get feedback. That can be on your projects by joining like communities online. Maybe you're doing a boot camp, go into the Slack channel. I'm sure there are Discords you can join. I used LinkedIn a lot. And that's another thing you can do is, outside of design feedback, get portfolio feedback from UX designers. I get a bunch of cold messages all the time. People will ask me to look over their projects, ask me to look at their portfolio. And you can get good feedback that way, and maybe they'll point out something you didn't recognize. My last bit of advice is to stay focused. It's really easy to want to get all these different certifications and coding, or like you could fall into an endless pit of courses that you can take to try and bolster your knowledge, but it's all about the experience. So if you're just applying for a general UX designer job, look at general UX designer job descriptions and focus on that. Find the commonalities between the job descriptions and focus on that and get experience in that. If they're all looking for people who know user research, show that in your case studies. If they're all looking for, if the ones that you're drawn to happen to be like, for me, it was the financial services industry. I worked on a financial services industry app. Like, you've got to stay focused. Like, you can't be all scattered, because I mean, what's a hiring manager supposed to do with that? It's like, oh, they've got like a course certification in XR design. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? Unless like XR is really what you want to go into, then that should be your focus, and that should be like what your portfolio is full of. So it's just really important to stay focused and not let yourself get super distracted because you feel maybe like you're less than, because like there's all these other designers that like do these amazing things and they're working for Disney or whatever. It's really easy to get down on yourself and feel like you need to add padding to your resume to seem more desirable, when in reality, like the more focused you get and the more real design projects you get under your belt, the better you'll fare in the job market. So focus on yourself, focus on getting your projects done in the real world if you can. If you can't, then come up with your own product and treat it as if it's your own business. That is definitely my biggest advice and what will probably help you the most. And document it on LinkedIn, because recruiters might reach out to you. So that's it for today. If you guys want more personalized advice, I do have services on buymeacoffee.com/MorganUX. You can book a call with me and we can go over your portfolio, or I can answer any questions that you have. If you want, you can leave your portfolio or case studies like links down in the video comments, and I'll pick a few and maybe make a video, but I will give you feedback. Just let me know what problems you feel like you're having. And yeah, as always, love chatting with you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.